All right, here's my three for the year. No drum roll needed.
Can we cut them up?
Oh, that's what we're gonna do.
I think that was
Okay.
baked into the game.
I want to chop them up all day long.
Yeah.
Everybody's. I just don't want to read
All
them
right.
all. I
That's
want to
right.
react to all of them. I think Florida makes a bowl game. I think they go 6-6, and I think that's against the norm. Be bolder if I said they were 7-5 or 8-4, but I just go bowl game. Florida makes
Okay.
a bowl game is one of my bold predictions.
Okay, so if Florida is in fact going to make a bowl game, they're going to have to win some games against top 25 opponents.
That's right.
When we look at the schedule, we've said it before, and I think most people agree, it could be the most difficult schedule on paper ever rolling into a college football season. Something you probably don't want if you're Billy Napier squarely on a hot seat.
Correct. I mean, if it's a job saver season, you do not want the schedule he's got. That is absolutely for sure.
I was asked this morning, though, is there one game that really pops in the SEC week one? And the Miami-Florida game, and this would be a great way to get off to the start he needs to get to a bowl game. It reminds me of Utah in Gainesville, the first game Billy Napier coached. It really does.
Yeah, I agree. It's still to this day the best game he's ever had there, and he just never could follow it up.
Let's say he gets that one. That's
Okay.
one win. Sanford, 2.
Yep.
UCF, I guess we'll go 3.
Man,
I mean, I've got to
these are
start
all
digging now.
tough. These are all tough.
Kentucky 4.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
not according to Matt Jones. You don't have to be that good to win that game.
At Mississippi State 5.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And now we got to find one. So is it A&M at home? Is it Georgia, neutral site? Is it at Texas? LSU at home? Ole Miss at home or at Florida
I
State?
could see either LSU or Ole Miss. I mean, it's going to be a tough road trip for those teams playing with college football playoff pressure, going to the swamp.
Or Florida State at the end. That's why 7 was
That's
hard.
on the road. That's what makes that tough.
7 was hard for me to get to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
6
but you know what?
it's hard to get to.
If they're 5 and 6, that's going to be really interesting because that could be the kill shot to Florida State to put them out
Yep.
of the college football playoff. And I do think this Florida team, the more I look at them, I think they're going to be so competitive week in, week out, unless you get a situation where Miami, runs them off by a couple of scores, then they lose to A&M, then they're sitting at, 1 and 2, and things kind of fall apart.
Notice my wording. It doesn't say Billy Napier takes Florida to a bowl game. It says Florida makes a bowl game.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that Dunaway's right. I think they win 6 games, and I think he survives. And I think that would be the right move for the Florida Gators.
And if Billy Napier sees this, when you're in town for the Birmingham Bowl, come on by our studio.
Yeah, come hang out.
We made the prediction.
Well, if he's playing at the Birmingham Bowl, it's an interim coach situation. It really is.
It always is
It's
there.
a tradition unlike any other. I think, now, having never seen a Big 12, a 12-team playoff, never seen a 12-team playoff, I don't know how they're going to handle seeding. But my second bold prediction is that it's an all Big 10 national championship.
Oh, wow. Oregon, Ohio State?
Oregon, Ohio State.
Oh, man. That's
now,
not...
obviously, it can get, branched out to where they meet in the semifinals. But I have a feeling Oregon and Ohio State play for the national championship.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this. I really, and I think I was talking to our friends Chip and Zay about this yesterday. Like, as a Rams fan, I've seen the Rams play the Cardinals recently in the playoffs for a third time. Same with San Francisco that same year, a third time. I've seen them play the Seahawks 3 times in a season. I don't want to see Oregon and Ohio State 3 times in a season.
Yeah.
I just don't. Like, and maybe it's just because we've never seen that look in college football. We've seen it with LSU and Alabama playing twice. We've seen it with Alabama and Georgia playing twice. We've seen Auburn and Georgia play twice. I just don't want to see a college matchup 3 times, especially at those levels, because the regular season matchup is going to be the biggest regular season game we've got in college football. That Big Ten rematch for the championship is going to be a massive game.
Yeah.
And then you get it again.
But listen to what you're saying.
Yeah, I know.
3 massive games. I mean, that's normally what we live for.
But if we accomplished, if anybody wins 2 or 3.
I tell you what, I'd rather have that than what we got with Georgia TCU.
Oh,
I mean, give me a third matchup than what I saw with Georgia TCU. It was an unwatchable game.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the national championship game that was over at the end of the first quarter.
I get that, but back to Dunaway and having this Big Ten prediction, just give me Big Ten SEC somehow.
Yeah, and maybe they'll do that in the bracket, right? Maybe
I would.
It's going to be hard.
Maybe they'll work the seeding to where the best 2 Big Ten teams, best 2 SEC teams meet in the semis.
Yeah, I just don't think it's easy to manipulate now because you got to count on other teams to win games.
Yeah, and you got to.
It was a little easier when you had 4.
Yeah, but if Ohio State is the 1 overall seed, where do you need to put Oregon to where they don't meet them? If it's Georgia, where do you need to put Alabama to where they don't meet, or Texas? We'll see how it works out. My other one is also a little Big Ten SEC flavor. I've got Nebraska winning more games than Oklahoma this year. Nebraska winning more games than Oklahoma.
Some Cornhuskers coming up in mine, too.
Yeah,
So
Huskers more than Sooners. Old rivalry. I wish they still played each other every year, but I got Nebraska more wins than Oklahoma.
If you would have said this last year on this show, hey, I'm going to jump a year, and I think Nebraska will win more games in 2024 than Oklahoma, I would think it's more bold than what you're saying right now.
Yeah. LT, the stage is yours.
Okay, so Furman, my first guarantee is going to be a firing, and it's going to happen in season. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but Sam Pittman, the Arkansas schedule is really difficult. There is a clause in his contract. If he is under 500, the buyout is significantly less. He is 23-25 right now. But I think once they get into late September, October, he drops a couple of games, stays under 500. I think he ultimately loses his job. And Bobby Petrino, 21-5 in his final 2 years in Fayetteville, 12-4 in those 2 years in the SEC. I think he gets a look as the interim coach. And I think ultimately he keeps that job and he's Arkansas's coach this time next year in 2025.
Wow.
You know, I think it's interesting because Sam Pittman, no doubt, is skating on thin ice. I'm not sure Bobby Petrino is the savior in Fayetteville that people are led to believe. They have this nostalgic reference for what he did before, but it wouldn't shock me at all if Sam Pittman is out at some point during the season, and I think they have to be right around 500 going into November. So I'm very interested to see, and if I was setting odds on the first SEC coach to be fired, I would indeed make Sam Pittman the short favorite in that market with Billy Napier probably a close second.
Wow, that's good news for Napier.
Okay, my second guarantee, like the Big 12 is so unpredictable this year, Furman. Like I can't tell you. I can tell you I believe one of 4 or 5 teams will win the Big 12 and get the automatic bid. But even more difficult to me is finding out who that Group 5 is. Last year on this show, I said it was going to be Texas San Antonio. Frank Harris gets hurt early. They played like I thought they would play second half of the season, ended up winning 9 games, but they weren't that team. I would love to say it's going to be Texas State. Jordan McLeod coming in. You look at the schedule, they're probably favored in every game, but I'm not going to go with the Bobcats, team that gave up 77 in the month of November to Arkansas State. I'm going to say September 28th will decide the Group 5 representative. Is South Florida heads to Tulane to take on the Green Wave. John Summerall's first year, Ty Thompson at quarterback. South Florida, Alex Golish in year 2. I thought the offense popped last year. I'll ask you a question, Furman, because you know all, and people are like, how does he know all of this stuff? I said, I don't know if he's a synthetic or he's a human, but there were 2 players in 2023 that passed for 3,000 yards and rushed for 800 yards. You know one, obviously, your Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels. Who was the other guy?
Well, you mentioned South Florida. I mean, Alex Golish clearly has this team buying into everything that has gone on, and it all starts with quarterback play. So when you're talking about the man under center, he's about as electric a watch as you're going to find in the sport, and by default, that leads you to starting quarterback Byron Brown as a guy that can do it with his arm and can do it with his legs.
Very good. Very good, Furman. I knew you would know the answer there. Byron Brown, I think in year 2 under Golish, I think the offense is going to be outstanding. And I think September 28th, it comes down to Tulane and South Florida. That is my second guarantee. And then my final guarantee, November 30th, rivalry weekend, 9-2 Texas heads into College Station to face 9-2 Texas A&M. Winner goes to the college football playoff with 10 wins. Loser goes home. A&M, that game will be a pick. Everything is setting up perfectly, Furman. A&M wins the game. A&M at 10-2. Year 1, Mike Elko goes to the college football playoff, and Sarkisian and that obnoxious Texas fan base are sitting home and going to like a Cotton Bowl or something.
Well, you know, I'm not sure if it's good or bad for the two of us, LT, because a lot of your bold predictions, a number of mine, you know, kind of piggyback off some of what you said. So I'll start and kind of go from back to front, because when I look at some of the bold predictions I had marked down on my sheet, I have an SEC championship game of Texas A&M against Alabama. I think Georgia is on the outside looking in, that there are some issues that we're seeing from Georgia in the trenches, some concerns that may manifest themselves. And while I believe in Carson Beck, I do have some other questions about the roster. Quietly, you go through A&M's schedule, that's a team that'll be favored, albeit a short favorite in a number of games, and arguably their first 11 contests before they get to Thanksgiving weekend against the Texas Longhorns. You look at their win total, 8.5. I no doubt think this team has a chance to flirt with 10 wins and really believe A&M is a dark horse in the conference. And I think Alabama's stock has fallen a little bit too far. I mean, I've been a big believer in Kalen DeBoer going back to multiple stops along the way. I know Alabama fans you can understand some of their trepidation when you lose a legend in the sport like Nick Saban. But I think Kalen DeBoer will have this program headed in the right direction. So I'll call for an SEC title game between Texas A&M and Alabama instead of Georgia, LSU, and Ole Miss finding the weekend off.
Wow, so Texas A&M, Alabama is your SEC championship matchup.
That is my SEC title, and of course, you guys know when I do all this, I look at most of these things through a gambling lens. So you're talking about A&M 20-1 to win the conference, and Alabama. I actually just added to my portfolio earlier this week. Took a price tag on them at 6.5 to 1. So those are the two teams that I have bet to win the SEC title.
If that does go down, Furman, and that matchup is played, what is the over/under on Jimbo Fisher references during the game? I mean, I would set it at 3.5, right?
Yes.
You know what's funny? I actually had dinner with some of your colleagues last night that are out here from the folks at 3HL in Nashville. So with Brent, Slay, and Dawn. And we were all talking about when Jimbo may actually surface and potentially take on some media opportunities. I feel like he's a guy that just wants to quietly disappear into the sunset of the college football landscape. He's taken his money, his $70+ million buyout, and wants no part of being around this media circus that all of us live for during college football season.
Let me ask you this. You said you added Alabama to your portfolio. For those that don't know what you mean by that, something happened for Alabama that made you take a second look. What was it with Alabama where you're like, okay, I think they're a good play now?
I think it's a team that's trending up. I have the utmost respect for the staff that, Kalen DeBoer has been able to build there. I think he's going to get the best out of Jalen Milroe. And quite frankly, for me, what goes up must come down. I'm a little bit down on Georgia in the grand scheme of things. Now, full disclosure there, I don't think Georgia falls off a cliff. From a true power rating standpoint, I still have them my number one team in the country. Do I think they could get pushed by Clemson next week in their opener? That remains to be seen. But I'm also down on LSU mainly because I don't think they address some of their biggest needs in the portal the more I dug into them. I have questions about this team on the defensive line. Can they be as bad and porous as they were on that side? Probably not. But I don't think the offense will mask the deficiencies the same way, as Garrett Nussmeier doesn't have that same level of mobility and an opportunity to extend plays, and I don't think they have the weapons on the outside that were at Jaden Daniels' disposal. And there's something about Ole Miss. I know everybody loves what they did in the transfer portal. Lane Kiffin is everyone's favorite walking, talking quote. But it's a team that I just can't get to yet for me to see them as a legitimate threat to win the SEC. I actually think the soft schedule early in the year, it can be something that works against them. So by default there, when you look around the landscape and you try and make a case for other teams, Alabama is a team that I haven't really upgraded overall in my power numbers. I feel comfortable with where those are, but I think their path is a little bit more fortuitous than I would have said if we were having this discussion about 6 weeks ago.
All right, what's your second overall pick here? Give us your guarantee.
LT talked about the G5 representative, and he said a team that he got close to. Well, I am on that team to get into the college football playoff as the automatic qualifier at a price tag right around 14 or 15 to 1. It is the G.J. Kinney-led Texas State Bobcats. When you look at what Texas State was able to do, I think the biggest coup for them in this landscape of NIL and portal, they actually got better in the portal. As a G5 member, they were able to retain a lot of their key contributors. LT mentioned their quarterback coming in from JMU. And they'll have two opportunities early on in the season to really build their resume. One against the G5 program in UTSA that'll come into San Marcos. And I think that's a program that takes a little bit of a step back without Frank Harris under center. They win that game. They'll also have the opportunity to beat a Power 5 conference opponent in their own building. Now, not an elite one by any stretch of the imagination, but if you can put a win over Arizona State in front of a national TV audience on a Thursday night on your resume before you go into league play, I think it sets a path up for them to potentially run through the Sun Belt, maybe not undefeated, as I know there are a number of good teams there, but it comes down to them and Appalachian State. I look at Liberty, who has two losable games against App State and ECU. If they drop one of those games, I think their loss against Oregon keeps them on the outside looking in. And then in the AAC, I actually agree with LT. I'm higher on Tulane than a lot of folks. I just don't buy Ryan Silverfield getting the most out of that Memphis team. So I'll take Texas State to be the first G5 qualifier in the college football playoff with a price tag of 15 to 1.
Yep. And number 3 for you, Furman, is
the biggest long shot on the board, and it is a former SEC quarterback that, in my opinion, ends up in the perfect system to try and make a statement, and that would be KJ Jefferson to get invited to New York and have a chance to win the Heisman Trophy, running Gus Malzahn's offense. Gus has done nothing but sung his praises, and we look at a quarterback that had similar skill sets, albeit not quite apples to apples, that did this down in the Plains at Auburn. I think KJ Jefferson can have the same impact for UCF that Cam Newton did for Auburn. I look at this UCF team. They're going to be in a lot of track meets. It's a wide-open Big 12. I'm not buying Utah and the durability of Cam Rising's knee. I think Kansas State is down a little bit. So if UCF is able to win 9 or 10 games and have a chance to win their conference, I think KJ Jefferson at prices in the triple digits to win the Heisman. I think he has a chance to get to New York and maybe do the unthinkable with a real Cinderella story after leaving Fayetteville, which no doubt kind of goes 360 to LT talking about Sam Pittman getting fired. It would really be a thorn in the side of Arkansas fans if their former quarterback won the Heisman playing for an Arkansas native in Gus Malzahn.
I think at some point in the season, we're going to have a major controversy over the in-helmet communication.
Oh, I think Scott's right on this. You know, we talked about this with Steve Shaw, and after Steve came on, I was like, what's the first game, Scott, where some coach says, so-and-so's helmet communication is working the whole game. Ours barely worked.
Mario Cristobal, week 1.
Yeah. I'm not going to make a big deal about this, but I want everybody to know. I think you're 100% on this, Scott.
See, I'm hoping it's Mike Gundy or somebody like that who's, has no qualms about shooting his mouth off at the mic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm 60. I can't hear.
I think that would be incredible. My second one, Lance already took it, so I'm going to pivot from that. I also thought that Sam Pittman was going to get canned at some point this season.
And for the record, Scotty, I hope he doesn't. I hope he does not. As much as I respect Bobby Petrino as a head coach, I think Pittman has done enough to keep his job at Arkansas.
So instead, I'm going to go Colorado goes 2-10, and Deion steps down.
Oh, wow.
That's going to be interesting, Scott. Let's just look at this for a minute. If they were to go 2-10, and we know Shiloh and Shadur are on to the NFL, does his pride get in the way of stepping down, though? Like, what is it? Does he blame it on his health? I mean, how do you escape that?
Yeah, I mean, because you're not getting another job at that point.
No, 2-10. He's not going to want to sit around and do it again.
You're not going to fight out of that hole without Travis Hunter or whoever, without Shiloh.
Yeah, but even if they were to go 7-5, and it would take Shadur playing he played lights out last year, and they were 4-8.
Yeah.
But if he played even better, and for whatever reason they found 8 wins, does he want to do it again next year without his kid?
Yeah, I don't think so. And I don't know how good, even if they reach their potential. I'm not sure if he's back again anyway, just because of the kid situation. Marcelo seems to think that they're going to be really good early on, Forrester, and that people will, just like last year, start talking about him, and then the rubber will meet the road again.
Yeah, but I also heard in Brock Heward's voice, did you guys kind of feel that first Thursday night game with North Dakota State, this is the team that could give them problems?
Yeah, Marcelo is the only person I've heard say the opposite. I think a lot of people think it's going to be tight. And Klatt too, yeah. He just hadn't said it on our show. Yeah.
And your third one, Forrester, is what?
All right, my third one, maybe my boldest one here. Auburn, they've not had a lot of success in either Athens or Tuscaloosa recently. Last win in Athens, 2005. Mm-hmm. Last win in Tuscaloosa, the Cam back in 2010. They're going to get one of those.
Oh,
I thought you were going to call for both.
I did too.
No, I'm not going there.
Up.
Hey, one though, I think, Scott, I think it could put them in a position that, Greg from Pell City said earlier, the Alabama-Auburn game could decide who's playing in the college football, or could decide who's playing in the SEC championship. If Auburn gets one of those games, watch out.
Yeah, I will tell you, Forrester, you continue. You're like the sixth person to paint a bad picture for Georgia, a different picture than what we've had the last few years of Georgia. So, not that you weren't assuming Auburn would beat Alabama, but you threw in Georgia there. So that's the first opportunity for number 3 for Forrester's predictions to come true.
The first year of the college football expanded playoff, there are 12 teams in it. Am I right about that, Jim? 12 teams.
Okay, Brown Bandit. I sense a little bit of the Brown Bandit anxiousness in your voice. Yes, there are 12 teams in what is called the 12-team playoffs.
Do you want me to play this down?
No. 12 teams.
I'm excited about football season, Jim. 12 teams in the college football playoff. Not one.
Is your prediction going to be that there's not 12 in there?
Not 2.
You're going to squeeze 13 in there?
Not 3. Not even 4. but 5 of them will be from the Southeastern Conference.
I don't believe that.
By the way, you just watch and see, Lance.
Okay.
5 SEC teams.
Can you give us the 5?
I cannot, Lance. I don't want to. We still want people to watch college football. Thank you, Steve. My first bushwhacker of the day.
Between you and EG, how are we going to get 5 SEC teams into group of 5 teams into this thing?
I did not agree with EG.
Okay, so just right now, just for the record, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri,
and
LSU, Oklahoma. I mean, there's too many in the top 25 right now.
Yeah,
but
there's 9 in the top 25.
Yeah, where do you see 5 in the top 12?
I mean, I don't see a world where I think this is going to be a fill-out process, right? The committee's not going to be like, we're going to allow 5 teams from one conference in this thing.
Okay, just let's do the math, everyone.
Okay, please.
Okay, one group of 5.
That's right.
One Big 12, one ACC.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Mm-hmm.
So then go 4 from the SEC and the Big 10, and that leaves 1 extra, right? So if the Big 12 and the ACC is not worthy enough to get a second one, which is possible.
Yeah, so I'll give you this. I think that it's more likely that we pull 1 back from the Big 10 and they get 3 in the SEC, and that regard could get 5.
Which leads me to prediction number 2, guarantee number 2. It is going to be one of the most under the radar big games in college football this year. But the Nebraska Cornhuskers, Friday, November 29th, it's Black Friday for retailers. It's going to be Black Friday for Iowa as well, because Nebraska knocks them out of the playoffs en route to a 9-3 season. Nebraska beats Iowa on Black Friday and costs the Big Ten a playoff team.
Iowa probably is going to lose one of these games they shouldn't against quality opponent. Could be that situation. I can definitely see that. I could see it week 2 against Iowa State.
You know how I feel that it's going to be 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten.
That's right, yes.
It's not going to be that easy.
Unfortunately for you, you're incorrect.
I just don't think it's going to be that easy.
It's almost going to be like it's written in the rules.
Yeah, I think that's the way they want it. I just don't know if it's going to be that easy for them this year to be able to get that. I think it will be relatively easy to get 4 from the SEC. The Big Ten is going to be a little bit more difficult.
The SEC's locked at 4.
5.
There's no way for 3.
Yeah, Brown said 5.
I'll leave open 5.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, but the Big Ten will have 4, even if it's a sneaky, squirrely 9-3 team.
I don't know why I continue to do this every year, but every year in my 3 guarantees, if you'll go back and look, I try to predict the Heisman Trophy winner, and I think I get it wrong every year.
Yeah, it's really tough.
It is difficult to do. But this year, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to your 2024 Heisman Trophy winner,
Luther Burden.
Oregon quarterback Dylan Gabriel,
Okay.
everybody.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel, your Heisman Trophy winner.
I like some Dylan Gabriel. He has
I think the problem is that when you pick the favorite in the Heisman, other than Oregon quarterback Marcus Mariota, it's never the favorite, right?
It typically is not. Normally those bones are made in November. And look at it like this. So if Bo Nix beats Washington in the Pac-12 championship, it's a good chance he wins a Heisman last year,
I can
right?
see that.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't know what you would have to do in Will Stein's offense. I don't know if the numbers can get better than they were with Bo Nix. So I don't think the numbers are going to be as good, but I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. I don't know. To me, it's much easier to predict a national champion than it is a Heisman Trophy winner.
I think so too, because like you said, sometimes it's just what you do in November. They remember you in November. Dylan Gabriel's a great pick. That's who I would pick right now.
I know.
Dylan
It's
Gabriel.
impossible to do.
But it just seems like the person and I think he is the betting favorite right now. The person who is the favorite, for some reason, ends up getting picked apart for 12 weeks, and somebody else ends up winning this thing. This is your first 3 guarantee Friday. I know probably a high point in your career at this point.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this.
So give me your first one.
All right, my first one is that Liberty makes the playoffs and Boise State. 2 teams from the G5 get in, but no Sun Belt team.
No Sun Belt.
No
Wait,
Sun
you
Belt.
got Liberty and Boise making the playoffs?
Yeah.
How does that even work?
I don't know. That's why it's
I guess
bold.
we would have it at large.
Yeah, it would require Liberty and or Boise being top 10 teams.
I think Boise might be able to get there with an undefeated run. There's no way Liberty can. Liberty doesn't play anybody.
Boy, I hear of East Coast, West Coast bias all the time, e.g., but
She's got
this group of 5, this G5 bias you have is out of control right now.
is.
This is crazy.
But it's bold. That's what we want.
Yeah.
All right, my next one.
What is next? What's number 2?
Lance will like this. A&M wins 10 games.
Okay,
Oh,
there we go.
There we go. Lance is there.
Yeah.
So crazy that 365 days later, LT's a big proponent of A&M.
I know. It's such a reversal.
Okay, my last one is a fun one, and I'm excited to share this. My bold prediction is that a fan and a mascot get in an altercation during gameplay that stops the play of game.
Wow.
That is one of my favorite guarantees of all time, and I so hope it comes true.
I'm just wondering which
Exactly.
mascot do we want them? Like, I don't want one of the stuffed. I want one of the real, like the leprechaun or the Seminole.
But it happens during the game, and the game has to pause to figure out the fan and mascot altercation. And now everyone will be hoping this happens this season, and I hope it does too.
Yeah.